We got live in about 3, 2, 1. Well, hello, folks. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower. I would like to welcome you to tonight's show. I'm joined tonight by goddesses Rhonda and Starr from the Priestess View. And of course, you can see Tamu and Gina is also with us. And Tamu is the one that introduced me to these fine ladies. So I'd like to ask Tamu right now, if she would, to make the introductions of our special guests. Go ahead, Tamu, if you would, please.
Well, I'm just going to make a short little introduction to these two amazing women, Priestess Rhonda and Priestess Starr, goddesses of the worldwide interwebs. They have an amazing show that comes on. I'm not sure which night, Monday nights. Yes, Monday night.
Yes.
The Priestess View, and it's a wonderful show. I've learned a lot from their program. They have great guests on, and I am so happy that they're on. So thank you, ladies, for coming on.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you on. And ladies, I noticed some of your videos, and I see again tonight, I just wanted to ask you something. I noticed that you are very often wearing, your beautiful accessories on your heads, on your foreheads. Can you give me, is that just decorative or is that spiritual in nature? Could you explain that to me?
Well, for me, it's both. Whereas the crown over the third eye, it activates the third eye and the psychic centers, the copper and the silver and the crystals with the energy, and also the crown chakra so I can receive and project. But it's also for pretty too. And I wear one around my throat as well for the throat chakra, because the throat chakra, what we store up in here, can actually affect the energy that you project out. So this also activates that as well.
Very interesting. What do you think about that, Starr? What's your take on that?
Actually, I think she's very right about a lot of what she said. My take on it basically is just take that. And then for me, it's just sometimes we just kind of say on our show, this is the night we're doing so-and-so. Let's just put on the tiaras tonight or whatever it is. Or sometimes it's hats, whatever it is that night. And we kind of go with it because we are very much that laid back show that kind of flows with it at the time, whatever it is that comes to us. And the jewelry and everything, it's all just part of what I do. The headpiece I got from Elvin Starr on Etsy. She's one of the ones that designs for, what's his name? What's that movie? The one with all the elves and the trolls. What's that one again?
Oh, the Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And I fell in love with her headpieces, and I was like, oh, I'm getting this one. So
yeah. Starr, have you read all those books behind you?
Oh my gosh, most of them, yes. Actually, yes, I did.
Excellent. I have another question for you that's on the top of my head. Now, I noticed that each of you identify yourself as goddesses, and then your show is called The Priestess View. Can you give me an understanding of the difference between goddess and priestess and how they relate to each other?
Sure. We actually consider ourselves goddess high priestesses, but you can't fit all that. We have to kind of chop it down a little bit. And my attitude towards that is we talk about our Father God and our Mother Goddess. So if I am the offspring of spiritual deity, if my mother and father are gods and goddesses, then spiritually I am spiritual royalty as well. But more importantly, I went through a really hard time in my life. And I was just like at a rock bottom space. And it occurred to me, I said, you know what? If I can create this kind of chaos, then I can create a better life for myself. Because much of my life was based on my own choices. Some things are, uncontrollable. And so I realized we all have the power and the autonomy within ourselves to create our lives. If you ask most people, how'd you get to where you are, would be because of the choices they made. And so that it puts the onus on me to take responsibility and really structure my life the way I want, to remind myself to make good choices. I grew up in the Christian background where they blamed everything on the devil. Oh, well, that happened. The devil did it. The devil made you do it. Or the devil made him do it to you, or whatever it is. No. The devil's sitting home watching Netflix. I made a choice. Whoever I was with made a choice. And it's time to own up to that. So I project that. I want everyone to realize they can create the life of their dreams or their nightmares. It's up to them.
Now, Rhonda, I salute you for that, because it's such a mature position. And even within our society, many times people fall into this victim identification and this victim mentality. And aside from it being very disempowering, it also guarantees the perpetuation of that victim status. And it's not until you, like you've done, realize, wait a second, the old saying, if it is to be, it's up to me. And you realize that I create whatever I'm doing. The words, my actions are either a wrecking ball or building blocks for my life. And I salute you for realizing that and taking the bull by the horn, so to speak, and taking it by your own bootstraps and building a great life. I noticed on your website that you're about building a beautiful life. And I really appreciate that. Starr, what are your thoughts about the relation between goddess and priestess? We're having a little trouble with your audio, Starr, just a little bit. You're a little low.
See what I can do. I don't. Hold on.
And we want to hear what you have to say.
Okay, I am so sorry. Okay, it's not as high as it should be, so I will put it up.
Yeah, that's getting better. Tommy, do you have any thoughts on goddesses and priestess as Starr is adjusting her audio?
Well, as Starr is adjusting her audio, I was taking out my magician card because I had some thoughts on the magician, and I was noticing that Priestess's Rhonda's tiara goes straight across, just as on the magician card. And that's what I've been meditating on the last couple of days, because I had mentioned that this is like a crown. And anytime the crown shows up in the tarot card, it's a sign of authority. It's a sign of privilege and great responsibility. And wearing that crown sort of, in that third eye area, like the magician, is like reminding yourself to guard your subconscious, to use your conscious mind to create. You create for your subconscious. And I like the fact that it looks just like the one in the magician card.
You're kind of freaking me out a little bit, because when I made this,
She does that.
I actually was called to look at the magician card when I started to make my crown. And I looked at it and I said, there you go. And that's what this is actually based on, is the magician card. That's pretty hip.
Starr, share something with us on your thoughts on all this. I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, because I didn't do anything. Okay. As long as you can hear me, you guys are hearing me great. Okay. In terms of that, everything that Goddess Rhonda mentioned is accurate to my thoughts. Also, I believe in my temple as a priestess. When I am being that priestess, I am the one eldering them or running them through the different rituals and everything that we are celebrating at that particular time. As the goddess, I kind of separate it a bit sometimes, because as the goddess, I believe that all of us as females should emulate and express ourselves as that goddess, and see ourselves as that temple, and respect ourselves as that goddess and temple, and strive to be better in any way that we can think of.
It's raining here in Florida, so I think we're here in the rain.
Sorry.
Falling on my roof.
Like, what is that?
I was like, what in the world is that?
It's rain. It's just rain. No worries.
Oh my goodness, I hope you guys are all right.
Yeah, we just went through the hurricane, so I think we'll be fine with a little thunderstorm. Now, I have a question for you. Is your ministry, is your work dedicated exclusively to ladies, or do you also work with people like me?
Oh, no. Everyone is welcome. All people are welcome. The only reason I have an emphasis so much on the goddess is that there's already a predominantly masculine energy out there. So I
Yeah.
project the goddess, not to say I'm only all about the goddess, but I'm trying to balance it out. The energy. I think we as women, if we project more of our goddess energy, we're looking for balance in the male and female energy so that we can have a peaceful world. So that's the reason we try to project that, to kind of balance out the energies.
And in no way would I ever say imbalance that, because honestly speaking, one without the other does not exist and
Mhm.
cannot exist. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, very much that balance. And we welcome everyone. If you look at some of our guests on our shows, not just guests, but if you look at our fans on the side of our Google, we have maids and a few others that are all males. And they enjoy the show just as much, and they feel as family oriented with us as they join in on the show, because we welcome everyone. We
Right.
don't care really in terms of gender specific or anything like that, because we are all part of that. So whether you see yourself as the goddess or the god, whatever you see yourself as, that's what we want you to emulate and try to honor in yourself, because we cannot honor everyone else outside of ourselves and not see ourselves in the same way, because then you're disrespecting yourself. You're not seeing yourself as worthy per se. And I want to see everyone seeing themselves as that worthy person and respecting yourself as such.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think we lost him.
Are we frozen?
I'm not sure.
I'm
Okay, it's telling me I am the host now. That's not true, is it?
It
That's
looks,
a mistake, right?
yeah, it looks like it. We're still on YouTube. So maybe Jeff will
Oh,
eventually
I
come
wonder if
back
the
on.
thunderstorm took his
That's what I'm thinking.
internet out.
Yes, that may have that may very well have happened, and I see that we are still on the still on the internet. I'm trying to say, so I guess I will need to go ahead and continue holding down the fort until Jeffrey. Okay, Jeff says that his internet is rebooting. His internet went out and it's rebooting. So someone just mentioned about ritual. Okay. So maybe Goddess Rhonda, you could take it first and give us a little bit of your idea of why ritual is important.
I have to say, one of my favorite things to do is ritual. First of all, it's a private time with the goddess, the god, or if you're priestessing to other people, it's sort of like leaving this world of pain and hardship, and you're going into an entire new realm now, whether you're by yourself or if you are with the people that are worshiping with you. It sort of kind of forces you to take the time to clean yourself up, clean your space, really get into your spirituality, into your soul, contact and be in direct contact with deity to help you with your things. And it also brings in structure as well. We live a lot of unstructured lives. You don't know what's going to happen from day to day. You're running willy-nilly, things like that. You have your thing, you set up your circle, you clean yourself up, you clean up your space, you call on the lords and ladies, you state your petition. It's a beautiful feeling for me to step out of this world and go into a world where things are peaceful and beautiful, and you've got all of your accoutrements there, your people are there, your energy is joined with others if they're with you in community to raise up and make great things happen and create, or even if you're doing your own little private thing, to be in that creation energy. I think especially as women, because we carry the womb, which means we are the creation part of the divine, of deity. And to actually step into that role as a goddess of creation, to help other people create what they want, help us, me, myself personally, to create what I want. It's almost like I stepped back into another lifetime when I was in Egypt or when I was with Inanna and Samaria. And it just puts you in that beautiful, beautiful space. I hate leaving my circle. If I had my way, I would live in my own little circle world all the time and just, chat on the phone if I had to, because this is my space. But I do think it is important to leave the world, center yourself and be in divine connection with deity.
Mm-hmm. And you, Starr, how does ritual play out in your life?
We have a temple here in New York City. In terms of, getting together.
It's a little bit hard. I'm sorry. It's just a little bit hard to hear you. So if you could kind of project out a little bit.
Is this better?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to
project that voice, Mama.
Yes. Okay. So in New York City, we have a group, what we call the New York City Family Temple. And we do our SBATs at the park, or when we're doing it outside in the warm weather. And we do it indoors at say maybe playwright studio in the wintertime when it's colder. But when we're outside, wherever we are, when we're doing ritual, it's just like, like Goddess Rhonda's mentioned, you do have, you present that whole casting of the circle as a barrier between us within this circle that we have here and the realm, outside, just keeping everything outside of that space to make us sacred and to keep us, I guess, grounded, a binding between all of us and celebrating together all that beautiful energies, celebrating divinity within the circle as well as within ourselves. All of that kind of, it creates that really amazing magical realm. And you do wish you can stay there that entire time. And when we're out in the park there and we're doing all of that, we see sometimes that we have almost like a group of people on the outside looking at us. And some of them you can see they want to join us. And some have actually come up and said, may we, kind of a thing. And we've kind of caught them into the circle and different things. But it's just such an amazing part that happens, that whole creating of energy and the spirituality of it, because some of them are coming from jobs or different things that has happened to them during the day that may not have been the best thing that happened to them all day. So when they come and they stand outside the circle, you could kind of just feel their energy is all chaotic. And we kind of say to them, we have them anoint themselves and we cut them into the circle and we kind of let them know that all of it, they leave it behind you. Let the world drop away from you, come into the circle and let's join in ceremony together. And when we come in there and they come in and they celebrate together. And when they're leaving, they say they needed that. When they say things like, I needed that, and I came in and I had such a horrible day, and I came in and it just all centered itself, and they walk away feeling empowered, or for whatever reason, the talk that we had or the communion that we had with the deities are working on things that they needed at that particular time in their lives. And they say a lot of times how appropriate a lot of the things are for them at that time. And that's exactly what they needed. So the fact that we can help in any of those ways, that they leave feeling centered and grounded and renewed in energies, it gives you that whole feeling of, I guess, community and circle, and enjoying all of that communion. So it's I don't even know how to entirely describe it, because the feeling happens every single month at the SBATs. And then when we have it with the 7 Sabbats, it's all celebrated differently, but all of those rituals, and unfortunately half the time I don't have time at home to do my my rituals at home privately, but I do try, because I'm always so busy doing everything else and feel like I'm always having to necessarily serve the community. But again, I always think, again, this is where the priestess part comes in, this is what we are supposed to do. And I believe in this lifetime, that's what Goddess Rhonda and I were meant to do, serve our community. And I believe by doing all the rituals and everything that we do, that's part of it. Even doing the priestess view, I think, because I think I've seen your name there on our show on the side with Tamu. I remember seeing it, and I'm thinking that all of it kind of intermingles and all of it interweaves with one another. And I think it's a message that we send to one another, and that this is community, no matter where we form it, or even doing the show, it's become a ritual with us. It's all of it that we create, so I think it all just kind of connects, and it's all just beautiful.
Very good. I see we have our host back, Jeff.
Yes, and I hope that the connection can stay stable, but I was pretty certain that the three of you would be able to go just fine without me. Now, one thing that struck me while you were speaking is the fact that you're talking about being in circles, and it hit me that most of the Abrahamic religions, be it Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, most of that worship is conducted within squares, and yet your worship and most of the more most people think of the word pagan as a bad word, but we know that pagan isn't a bad word. Why do you think that? Do you think there's any significance to that fact that most of the Abrahamic religion is done in squares and the pagan work is done in circles?
If you really think about it, technically, when you're calling the corners of the east and the south and the west and the north, technically that is a square, but I think it's more of a circle within a square. It's a protective circle. I don't think
of getting outside the box.
Basically, a lot of the things are sacred geometry. I don't know what they were thinking when they did theirs as a square, although I will say that the square is more of a masculine kind of a symbol, whereas the circle would represent more of a womb, so it's more of a woman kind of a circle. But I think of it as a circle within the square.
And right before I left, you made the statement that it's very important that you're not trying to, have hyper femininity. And we've been in a long time, probably about 2,000 years of hyper masculinity. And sometimes I hear people speaking, and it seems as though they think that the solution to 2,000 years of hyper masculinity is this swing way over into hyper femininity. And I like the way, I believe it was Goddess Starr said that what we're really looking for and what we really need is a balance between the masculine and the feminine. And how do you recommend that people that have been feeling this 2,000 years of hypermasculinity, how do we respond and just bring it back into balance without going too far to the other side again and causing a problem of a different sort?
Personally, I think it would have to start with the children, because, one of the things I write about in my book is when a girl is born, the first thing we do is we hand her a doll, to nurture and take care of, because we're already starting the training and the thinking of nurturing. We get her a little Betty Crocker oven and things like that. And we have tea parties. And then we actually, as women, learn to have relationships with inanimate objects. So that makes it easier for us to grow up and be involved with men who are emotionally unavailable or project emotions that aren't there. Men on the other hand, as soon as they're born, they're handed a football, a baseball, so to go out, divide and conquer, be team, be homies, get out there and win, 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 win. And so we've got the women who are taught to kind of just be quiet and soft and play with their dolls, while the men are taught to go out there and survive and achieve and be successful and bring home the money. How nice would it be if when a girl was born, we handed her a football and said, listen, let's talk about teamwork. Let's talk about going out there, achieving success aggressively, and teaching the boys it's okay to cry. It's okay. I would hand my son a doll and say, you're going to nurture this doll, because what if you're a single parent one day and you have to? Learn to exchange the roles and understand it's not just, I grew up, my dad I love him to death, but he was a chauvinist. We had our own little things. I was allowed to wash dishes, do laundry. I could garden, but I couldn't cut the grass or do things that men do. And so if we were to actually blend and let men know that it's okay to be emotional. If my brothers were told you're not allowed to cry, be a man, stand up, no crying, only girls cry. I could cry all I wanted to. And my dad was like, oh, you're so cute. But my brothers, no. If we could actually teach them that gender roles aren't based on men having to get out there and be the gladiator and women having to stay home and just be the soft one, and to understand that we as people can experience both. I like to think I balance myself out with my divine feminine and my divine masculine every day so that I'm a balanced person. And so I think if we start with children and their training, we can actually get them to look at themselves more as spiritual beings that have both masculine and feminine energies that work together, as opposed to separating the genders and creating this wall.
And I 100% agree with you. And I think that's a great idea to start. But what do we do with those of us that are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old that we can't go back to the beginning? how do you recommend that we work on that within ourselves?
That is something that actually opening yourself up, getting a woman to open herself up to be aggressive isn't really that difficult in today's day and age, because women do have to get out there and work and bring home the bacon and raise them. They have to do both.
Right.
But if we could get, and we don't have a problem with that, if we could get men to sit down and say, you know what, it's okay for me to be emotional. It's okay for me to open up and feel this wonderful, nurturing goddess energy. Maybe have them liken it back to when their moms used to nurture them, to open themselves up to the spiritual nurture of the divine goddess. Let some, that it's okay. It's about, you have to open yourself up, so you have to be willing. I have plenty of grown men older than me that come to me and say, you know what, I'm into the goddess now. I want to learn more. Can you teach me? How can I do that? Through meditation, getting in touch with the goddess energy, tapping within yourself, because that energy is also inside. So
Absolutely.
to let it come out of yourself through meditation, that would be an excellent way to start.
Starr, can you think of any other techniques that you could recommend, maybe specifically to men, to help awaken and strengthen that divine feminine within ourselves, so we can come into more balance?
I think one of the things are, first of all, you have to be open. If you're not open to it, you can talk till the cows come home. You're talking to a wall, a brick wall. They're not open to accepting either side, or both, or the female side at all. So first of all, they have to be open. And if approaching us or coming to us, and a lot of them come to me that are males, and they're talking to me about it in terms of the goddess worship or different things. And I'm just telling them truthfully what I think as a balance, unless God was a single father, or he left the goddess mother and he basically said, okay, you're on your own, you're a single mother. I don't understand. So to me, I kind of work on logic, especially with the grown adults. Goddess Rhonda mentioned a few things as a child, and yes, in a way with kids, you can begin as children, but I think part of it is the way I was raised, I guess. I had 10 uncles. So I was given a doll, which I quickly buried the head somewhere. I was not, I did, because I was just like, what the hell? My uncles and all of them are, learning the mechanics, because we had an auto mechanic shop and they were learning all these different things. And everything that they were doing, I was just like, so why do I have to sit there? So I just went along with them and I did everything and then some. I was even doing some of it better than they were. I was the one that got in the car at 10 years old and started driving the car, and they in the back seat watching me do it. And I was the one getting under the hood of the car and trying to learn what parts fit where. So, even now with my two boys, I'm the one trying to teach them the electrical part behind the TV, or let's paint the house, or different things, because I just feel like they should know these things. It's not a male or female to me, because I never had a daughter. I had two boys. So yeah, we were at martial arts and hockey, and if I can, but they didn't let us do it in New York City, the gun range. I would have gone there too, because those are things I did, and all those things that I grew up learning. So to me, if I had a daughter, I'm sorry, she was going to be doing all of those. If it was her choice to choose the doll or whatever, it was fine. But I was giving her the options, the same as my boys. I gave them all the options open to whatever it is. I don't know if specifically I would put football or whatever in exchanging whatever. I would just give them the option. Choose what you want to do. Because then I don't want to take away their rights to choose differently or whatever, you know what I mean? I want them to be able to choose on their own which path they're going to take with it. Because I think because I had so many males in our family there, and there was very few females, I kind of geared towards what I saw around me, and I enjoyed that more. I was even speaking to a gentleman yesterday who was heavily trying to come on to me, like, I guess, what do you call it, flirting? And he was talking about all the things that he can do for me. And I was just like, if you can cook, wash, clean, I don't do these things. Now, if you're talking business, now you and I can talk. And he was like, I'm willing to do all those things. I said, that's good, because that's not me. Because it never was. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to make it up. I'm not into cooking. I'm not into cleaning, none of those things. I just like a clean house, and I like to cook, and I like to eat. That's about it. So, and I like my businesses. So it's just a matter of the balance, I guess, is based on if you are willing to be open to whatever it is in front of you. Don't stop yourself. Allow yourself to open up to whatever it is. You can be that engineer, or you could be the one on the moon, or whatever it is, you know. Give yourself the options. Don't limit yourself to this. And I don't think you should limit your kids to the things that people presume to be male and female. Just open it all up and say, help yourself.
I think that's a great idea.
I can give you a quick exercise that can help you to energetically bring yourself into balance.
Please do help us brothers out a little bit.
All right. So what I need you to do is, I need you, typically our right side is masculine and our left side is feminine. So what I'd like for you to do is, I want you to take a second and I want you to imagine that your right side, your entire right side, is nothing but sunlight. And say that I balance the divine masculine within me. And now with the sun on your right side, imagine that your left side is pure moonlight. And say, I balance the divine feminine within me. And now bring up the energies, the visualize or feel the vibration of the earth energies coming up through the body. And then put your hands together and say, I am in divine balance. And that activates all of the energies. It actually makes you feel better to do that.
That's excellent. And it sounded like when I was gone, you were talking a little bit about ritual. And I also noticed from some of the some of your podcasts and some of your information that you talk a lot about having seasonal holidays. And I'm just wondering if incorporating the reality of those seasonal holidays might help us understand and incorporate the balance of the masculine and the feminine. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. You know, the thing is, I don't stay within one tradition, though. I recognize the holidays from various traditions, a lot of Hinduism as well. And so, for example, we have coming up on the 20th, the 9 nights of the goddess, when the goddess descends to earth. That's an excellent time to get involved with the goddess energies.
What tradition is that from?
That is from Hinduism.
Okay.
And so there's actually 10 goddesses that descend on earth to come down and help us with all various different things. We have Saraswati with his wisdom, creativity. We have Goddess Lakshmi's prosperity, love, and we have Durga for defense and war. And so they all come down to help us in their various incarnations, because they incarnate as different goddesses as well. It's sort of like I can be Lakshmi, but Lakshmi is also a part of Gayatri. It's a little complicated when you get into that. But absolutely, I think that by acknowledging the holidays and what they represent brings you in alignment with the flow and the circle of things. I just like to bring in traditions from, I call myself a universal priestess, a universal goddess. So I like to bring in traditions from everywhere and include them in all of my ceremonies. I bring in planetary magic, Celtic, Norse, and a lot of Hinduism and Egyptian. But it does help to do that, to understand the flow and the cycle of things to help people get in touch.
Do both of you ladies in your practices, do you deal with many people that are coming out of, our traditional Christian type of background?
Very much so. And, that's one of the things that they will sit down and they'll say, well, I'm psychic, or I'm this, or I'm that, or I feel like I'm a witch, but I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell and blah, blah, blah. And so what I tell them is, listen, let's forget about what John and Paul and Peter and Matthew said. They were just men with opinions. I could give a rat's ass what they have to say. Let's focus on what Jesus said. Jesus said, I'm going to my Father now, so you will do greater things than me. Meaning, I'm about to retire, so you're going to need to go out there and pick up the sword and take over. And when you look at Jesus, he was a magician, right? He turned water into wine, fed the multitude with one fish, walked on water. He was a healer. He just had to look at you when you were healed, or you touched his robe. And he was a psychic. They called it prophet. I call it psychic, tomato, same thing to me. So he was a magician, a healer, and a psychic. And he said, you will go on to do greater things than me. You're going to have to pick up the sword and get your butt out there. So to me, that's Jesus giving you permission to get up off your butt Stop relying on, I'll just sit here and wait on the Lord, which is what you're taught on in Christianity and church. Just sit and wait on the Lord. Don't just sit and wait. No, he said, get up, use your abilities to get out there, be a psychic, be a healer, be a magician, and get out there and do good for the world using the innate powers that we have. And when I tell them that, they're like, wow, I never thought about that. That's not the way, because, it says, I don't care what John, you're a follower of John or you're a follower of Christ. Who are you following here? Let's pay attention to what Christ said. And he said, go out and do greater things than me. That's all I need to know. And once I tell them that, they feel a lot better with that decision.
Starr, speak to us on the way you deal with folks that are coming out of a Christian background and maybe having a little trouble making the transition out of that very narrow type of thought and accepting some of these things that Goddess Rhonda was talking about.
A lot of the times, actually, when they come but a lot of times, because to me, what I am is a very personal journey, and we are not into converting. Are you hearing me okay? Because you look like you can.
Well, your first two sentences were lost, but now we hear you fine.
Okay, all right. Yeah, you look like you were kind of trying. Okay. What I was saying basically was that yes, I do quote some of the quotes from the Bible to kind of let them know about what we are doing as being what it should be. But I also have the concept of, because what I am as a witch is a very spiritually personal journey. We don't convert. We're not here to bring you over to the other side or any of those things. If it's your true journey to end up where we are right now as a witch, then you have to go through certain things, to me, as dealing with what you are as a Christian, or where you're coming from as that Christian. Because a lot of them, they come into it and they want to practice witchcraft very similar to Christianity. And I think they're kind of at odds with each other when they come in doing that. So they kind of have to sometimes do a lot of letting go of what they're, all those traditions and all those things that they were dealing with for so many years, because they've been programmed most of their lives to believe this concept. So now they have to kind of deprogram themselves. And I don't want to always feel like I'm the one doing it for them or guiding them with it in that sense, because then it feels like I'm trying to convert them, and I'm not. It has to be a journey of self and them wanting to really be that, because this is not what we do, in terms of, we don't convert. So I'm not too much into helping them along with that, as much as if they say to me, I need help with getting past certain hurdles of it, then I will try to do my best with helping them get past that hurdle. But to actually say to them, because of certain quotes in the Bible, this is what you should see it as. Yes, because a lot of them would say, yeah, I see what you mean, but they still leave, and I could see it in their faces that they're slightly doubting what was said, or maybe we are misinterpreting what's being said. Because you can take a quote in the Bible and any sets of lines, and any pastor could take that same line and they all have a different version of how they're coming at it, because we've seen them do it over the years. So in my head, I don't want to be that 100 and whatever pastor now telling you this is what that line really means. You have to come up with a lot of that yourself for you to believe it, because you're not going to, I'm not going to convert you. You know what I mean? Again, to me, this is your journey. You have to want to be there, and you have to, for you to get there, you have to believe in what it is that you're going through with and where you can end up.
Great stuff.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, Tamu, how was it coming out of a Jewish background into more of this type of thought?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm not even quite sure where to begin on that, other than to say my constitution, I wasn't raised in any particular religion when I was growing up. My mother wasn't Christian. We weren't any religion, but she always taught me to be thankful for what you have. And she believed that there was a higher being, there's a higher self, someone, be thankful for it. someone that put all of this into motion. And I think for myself, really starting to come out of organized religion probably started about 10 years ago when I became a Reiki master. And things just started to work in that way. And there wasn't this hard and fast choice. It was just little decisions along the lines. And I will be honest, even though I wasn't raised in any religion, you sort of indoctrinate yourself because it's part of society to domesticate and fit in somewhere. So there are still times where I have to work on letting this concept go or that concept go. And, it's a journey and it's a process. And I'm not about throwing out the baby with the bathwater. There's certain things that still ring true to me. And so I keep them. I let go what no longer serves me and what no longer keeps me in a box and limited. And that's what I do.
Interesting. Now, one of the people in the chat room asked a question that I think is very telling. A lot of people coming from a Christian background have this very rigid sense of right and wrong, black and white, very, very dualistic. And so in the chat room, the concern was, are we really deprogramming ourselves, or are we blurring the distinction between right or wrong? So how do we deal with people that still see everything in terms of right or wrong, black or white, and help them to try to get to a place that's a little more inclusive and kind of get beyond the dualistic idea?
I think by getting them to recognize, a lot of people, they want to become a witch. We are already witches, all of us are. They just don't know it yet. And if they could actually look inside themselves and see that they cast spells every day and work magic every day. If I'm going for that job interview that I know I'm going to, and I said, you know what? I'm going to get that job, and I put on my power suit and I walk in there and my energy is confidence because I'm going to get that job. That's casting a spell.
Absolutely.
When you do something like that, if you're out to go, that guy at the club you saw last week, you're going to get him tonight. You're going to put your freakum dress on, you put your perfume with the pheromones on it, and you're naked like, I'm going to get him because I am this sexy goddess and he's going to see it. That's casting a spell. We cast spells all the time. When we're like, gee, I really hope that things get better for hurricane victims, or I wish that person that I just read about, I hope that they get better, that they survive this. We're casting a spell. We cast spells all the time. So by saying magic is wrong, you're doing it all the time. There's actually a hypocrisy, a conflict within the soul. If you recognize that you're doing it all the time and it's worked for you, and you don't have to be a Hindu priestess or a Jewish priest. You can be a Christian witch. We have Christian witches out there. And basically all it is recognizing the power that is within and that you're already using it. You use it all the time. You don't go and apply for a job and say, well, gee, I sure hope I get this job. I don't know, but I hope I get it. You walk in there, like, I'm going to get this job. You are projecting the power to get the job or to get into that school or whatever it is you're trying to do. All of that is magic and casting a spell. So whether you're a Christian or you're Jewish or whatever you are, you're a magical being. I say take the religious label off of it and just recognize this is who you are. We are spiritual beings with these powers that we use every day, whether we acknowledge it or not. And you don't have to leave Christianity to be a witch. I have worked with a lot of people that stay within their Christianity. And they just do things in Christ's name, but they're still using candles and incense and everything else.
Interesting. Starr, what are your thoughts on that, Goddess Starr?
I agree with all of what Goddess Rhonda said, because if you've watched any of our show, we've always stated that everyone is a witch. They're born witches. It's just a matter of if this is the time in the world that you are willing to pick up the mantle of it and go forward with it. And if you're not, then you remain in where you are. It's everyone's basic decision. As for blurring the lines in terms of right and wrong, I think part of the thing is that with a lot of the Christian religions, I mean, this is just me from the outside because I've left it so long ago, over 30 years ago, that I don't remember all of it. But if you are looking at Christian religions, a lot of them, they write out or dictate what right and wrongs to you. So you are already coming up with that concept of this is what's right and wrong. But yet at the same time, when you're at home as one human being to another, you know what's right and wrong within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm about to do a certain thing, it's right or it's wrong. You know, like Goddess Rhonda said, if you are going out for that job or whatever it is, what we consider glamour magic, because you're putting on the power suit, you're putting on the makeup, you're making yourself look a certain way because you want to achieve that goal. That's to us glamour magic.
Yes.
Glamour spells. Praying for something to be a certain way, or fervently praying or holding a thought to have something work out a certain way, that's a spell. You're casting a spell. All of those things. And were you thinking right or wrong? No, you were thinking, I would like this outcome. It's got to work out because I've got my bills to pay, or I've got to live. I don't want to die with Hurricane Irma, or whatever it is. It's all part of what we consider morally inside. It's part of the reason why to a lot of witches that line that they say, and it harm none, do as ye will, because basically, again, they form their own moral code as to what they will be willing to do or not. We are innately, no matter what, anyone can put out all the different 10 commandments, well, whatever amount of commandments, whatever you want to say, it is still up to us innately, right and wrong within ourselves, that we decide morally what we are going to do and not do. And how many have you guys gone against? And if you really want to think about it, then morally you were wrong, right? If you want to be honest with yourself, that is. But if you're not, you can go around and say, well, I've never done whatever it is. Yes, you have. A lot of people I've met as Christians, they have done things that morally speaking, I will never do, because I am not about to then go at the end of the week and go to my church or whatever, kneel and say, forgive me, Father, or whatever it is, because I'm not doing that. The morality to me in my mind and my head, for me personally, I have set for myself, has nothing to do with any of your commandments or whatever else that you have morally set up for yourself within your religions. I base it all of it on what I personally are willing to put up with or not. And good, bad, or indifferent, I deal with it in my way. But yeah, like I said, there are things that I have seen, many that call themselves by the certain top religions, Catholic or Christian, and I would never do it. I just can't cross that line. So
that's empowering to be able to know within yourself what your guides are and what your mores are and what your lines are that you won't cross, and not to have someone draw them for you, but to draw them yourself. Let me get your feedback on an observation. For 20 years, I was a licensed minister with 3 of the largest Protestant denominations in the world. And I was an evangelist. I was the guy that went from church to church to church for about a week, 2-3 weeks at a time. So over the period of 20 years, I saw literally thousands of churches and many, many, many different types of people. And there were 2 observations that struck me over that time, and more than 2, but 2 for this particular thought. Everywhere I went, in every congregation, it was probably at least 60% female, sometimes 75 or 80% female. So the obvious correlation was that, just given the numbers, women or females seem to be more spiritually oriented than men. At least that was my perception. And also, as I looked and observed people, it seemed like people of color seemed to be more spiritual than white people, generally speaking. Please respond to my thoughts on that and give your own feelings if you would. And if you want to say I'm totally all wet, that's okay too.
Well, no, coming from that background so strongly myself, first of all, as far as it being mostly women, again, we go back to gender training. We women are taught it's okay to look up to male authority. So that's okay for us. Whereas men are taught, you're supposed to be the man. You're supposed to be in control here. You're supposed to be the provider of the family. You're not supposed to look outside to anyone else. So it's easier for women to go to church and look up expecting help from their divine father, because we are taught to look for help from men.
Very insightful, Goddess Rhonda.
That's where that comes from. And as far as Black people, African Americans being more spiritual, a lot of that, keep in mind that when we went through slave times, that was literally beaten into you upon pain of death. You were going to be a Christian. And because that kind of training where you were literally beaten or killed or whatever, if you did not say that, that is then passed on down through the generations where you must go to church and you must do this and you must do that. What it's really is from because our ancestors were beaten into it, and to step outside that line could mean death or beatings or worse. You were taught you must go to church, you must say Christ is your savior, because we came from African religions and spirituality. They wanted that gone. And so it was a total brainwashing and beating and torture and everything else. Well, the torture might not have left, but that training, that Stockholm syndrome, is still passed on throughout the generations. And so that's where a lot of that comes from, is from that.
That's fascinating. Starr, what are your thoughts? Goddess Starr, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think that along with all of that, I find that along with being in this whole Stockholm syndrome bit, I believe that, again, there's a whole imbalance when it comes to race in terms of, she pretty much covered everything in terms of why the male and female.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the race part, I think there's an imbalance there, because if you've got pretty much the majority of the money or the financial backing or the home and everything, or the more steady financial income, a lot of what they do, and if you speak to a lot of them, they're like, why? I don't need to go to church for that. I've already got it at home. And a lot of minorities or Blacks are always in need of, because the majority of them do not have that kind of income, and they feel that they need to go there to be able to speak to the Lord and all of that, and bring some of the financial things into them that they need in their homes or in their lives or anything like that. That whole imbalance with a lot of them, when I speak to, without even realizing it, I'm not African American, I'm from Canada or Trinidad and Tobago. And coming from that outside part, I see where a lot of them are coming off of that, because in their heads, they have no reason to go spiritual. It's already there in their homes. They don't need to go outside of that for it. And if they do, it's because something traumatic has happened in their lives. To a lot of Blacks, a lot of trauma happens almost on a daily basis. So this is where they're going for the nurturing, for the security of things will change, it will get better in the afterlife and all these different things. At least that's my thoughts on it, because to me, I hear it a lot from them. And I'm like, if you don't, I remember Goddess Rhonda said earlier, and maybe it was on one of our shows, if you don't start taking responsibility for yourself and stop being that victim and start saying, I am going to do this and I am going to achieve whatever it is, then yeah, you're reaching out to your church or whatever it is for it. They are also, when I did some research some years back, Blacks are the highest amount, they make less, they earn less rather, but yet they're the highest amount of people that give in that envelope for tithes.
Absolutely.
And for what else? For when they're sending it to the Jimmy Swaggart or whomever it is, envelopes are packed with money and you barely have any at home. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I'm sitting there going, why? None of that makes any sense to me. It's totally illogical, because isn't part of what the Bible said is the Lord helps those who help themselves? You're not helping yourself by...
It could be.
It is, or it was not. Oh, my goodness.
It's not in the Bible, but that thought certainly is.
I remember something along that line. You know what I mean? It's just that it's ingrained in them to do this and to rely. And then when they're doing it, like Goddess Rhonda said, they being beaten into them for so long. And then when they're doing exactly what they were told all this time, then they're told, oh, now it's wrong. You need to fend for yourself or whatever else is out there, It's just a very imbalanced system.
It really is. And Goddess Rhonda, what you said earlier about and I had forgotten about that. I guess I knew, but I hadn't really thought about the strict ritual training out of the African religions and the conformity to Christianity, during the whole dark period of slavery. And I look at, white people within Christianity are filled with this Stockholm syndrome because we've been taught for 2,000 years, sure, this is the only way. And how much more strong that is within the Black community, who it's specifically those that have, ancestry through, slavery in the American South. And it's it seems like there's a real opportunity there to help people if we could just figure out a way to be able to do it in a practical way.
I agree with you 100%. And I think the best way to start to do that, which is what Goddess Starr and I always talk about, is setting that example that look at what we're kind, we're helpful, we're charitable. We're here to empower you and kind of pull you out of that abyss of Satan that you think you're in. You know, what I try to turn people, because you get people, happy people don't typically come to see me. No one comes to see me and says, my life is so awesome. I want to know how much more awesome is it going to get?
Which is too bad, because it could get more awesome.
It could. But unfortunately, they come in that victim mentality. I don't know why I'm stuck. I don't know why this is going on. I don't why, you know, for years I've had no money and blah, blah, blah. And so they come in with that victim mentality. So the first thing I say to them is, dang, you're a badass. You went through all that, and here you stand before me.
Wow.
You are not a victim. You are a victor. Let's change that perception that you are not a victim. You have survived all this. You are victorious. You're a victor. And if you can survive all that, everything else is a piece of cake. There's nothing that can stop you. So let's just go ahead and change that perception. So, you know, changing perception, you know, people like, one thing that drives me nuts is when you see witches depicted like on Facebook, you know, they're green and they got this big water in their nose, and you know, you know, and it's like, I'm trying to change that. No, we are kind, beautiful men and women of spirit, of the earth, of the sky, of nature, of the divine. And if we can just get you to see that, it's one of the reasons why we do the show, is to change the perception of who we are out there.
Absolutely. Just reframing the perception. And actually your victimization, the fact that you've been through all this and have lived to tell about it, shows that you're really not a victim, you're a victor. That's awesome. Goddess Starr, what do you have to add to that?
Absolutely. Along with that victor, I think if you would just for once sit back and say, my goodness, kind of like that picture of that witch with green moors. If we can just sit back and say, witches are gorgeous women and men.
Yes.
They are out there and they are beautiful, of different sizes, shapes, colors, races, whatever you want to say. There are so many of us and in so many different shapes, and we're all beautiful. The thing about it is, just like nature and anything else, yes, we can kick ass if we need to, take names if we need to, and anything else that we need to do, because we are human and we're all parts of how nature has all the different parts of it. Same thing. The differences are you're doing it very much self-aware, and you're doing it, I'm not that victim. I am here. I am centered. I am a beautiful person inside and out. Accept me for who I am. And if you don't, that's okay. You know, because a lot of times we are so busy. You see on Facebook a lot. Their lives are put out every day out there with every little thing, and accept me and please feel pity for me. At least that's the way I'm seeing it. I'm sorry. Because it just feels like, you know, is there any way to just stop saying feel the pity for me and feel the centering on just me? No, there are so many things out there of that, outside of that we just need to learn to encompass and just learn to love about ourselves. Because part of the whole thing is, I think I mentioned it in one of our shows about self-love. We have such a hard time learning to love who we are. We love our kids, we love our husbands, our wives, or our best friends, but we have such a hard time loving ourselves. And you can say you love yourself, but 99% of the people I meet do not love themselves. And part of it is that they need to learn to love themselves first. And I've even told Goddess Rhonda, I've created this whole series of courses and different things that I teach with people about self-love. Because if you don't learn to love yourself, why would you expect everyone else to either respect or love you back?
Well, that's what the Bible said. Love yourself and your neighbor as yourself.
Well, it's yes and it's no. It's that whole, to me, that the mentality of the self-love is, you know, when you're in that airplane and they say to you, if anything goes wrong, help yourself first and then help everybody else, even your child. If you don't help yourself first or love yourself first, how can you possibly give the true love or whatever it is to anyone else?
You can't.
You know, and that, what I call a deformity within ourselves of not loving ourselves for who we are, good, bad, and indifferent, because we all have all aspects of ourselves. You may not like it all, dark, light, whatever you want to call it, but it's all part of who you are. And you have to learn to accept all aspects of it. You really do.
Absolutely.
What it is.
As we get ready to wrap this up, please give us information on where we can contact you, and if people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
Okay, you can either go to my Goddess Rhonda Facebook page, which has a link to my website. You can go to my YouTube channel. If you just put in Goddess Rhonda, it'll pop up. And that also has a link to my website and a whole lot of tutorials that will teach you, you know, if you're an empath, raising psychic abilities, energy work, things like that. And also our Priestess View show archives and my newfangled Superhuman Revolution show, where I'm trying to teach people we're all superhumans. Or you can just go straight to my website, which is healing Henna, HENNA, goddess.com. But that's such a long thing. It's easier to either like you go to YouTube, put in Goddess Rhonda, or go to Facebook, put in Goddess Rhonda, and my page will pop up, and then you can access my website or just contact me through both of those venues.
Absolutely. Goddess Starr, how do folks get in touch with you?
Well, we have a temple. You can reach out to me or at the Academy, WFP Academy of Pagan Studies.org. Or I would love to have you shop on my website at charmedbystarr.com. That's Starr with 2 R's.
Charmedbystarr.com.
Exactly. So check out anything there and you would find me. I'm on Facebook under Starr Ravenhawk as well.
Starr Ravenhawk.
Yeah, Starr and Ravenhawk. So you're always welcome to reach out to me and, you know, check us out in New York City if you're ever here in New York City at either one of our SBATs or SABATs or anything like that.
Absolutely. You know, I have a little saying that I throw out, and today it's this discussion has really made it become much more alive to me. I like to say that there's no them, there's only us, and no one's free until we're all free. And just to hear about, you know, the perspective from Goddess Rhonda, the perspective from Goddess Starr, the perspective from Tamu, it just lets me know that there's a reason why the powers that be try to divide us along lines of race and culture and gender and religion, is because once we get together and really start talking in a forum like this, we start to realize that there's way more things that we have in common than things that we have that are different. And you can learn so much from people. Like, to me, I used to feel bad because I was, under 2,000 years of, religious mind control. And I just realized there's a lot of folks that had that plus actual real control. So it really empowers me and inspires me to be more about helping people. And, Mark Twain said that it's much easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled. But that doesn't mean the four of us are going to stop trying, does it?
That's right. Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to have all of you ladies here with me tonight. I hope that our listeners will take advantage of the very unique and empowering perspective that each of you are offering. And I hope that this won't be the last time that we speak to each other.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful. Namaste. And I look forward to coming back.
Namaste. And if you ladies will just hold tight for 1 second, we're going to go ahead and end this on YouTube. And I just want to say goodbye to you personally, if we can, just for a couple seconds. But I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been the Gospel Truth about the Priestess, the Priestess View.
Priestess View.
With Tamu and Gina. I salute all of you for being folks that are seeking truth. And remember, if you don't remember anything else, remember you don't have original sin. You got the spark of divinity within. Love yourself. Love everybody else. Let's be excellent to each other. Let's make the change that we want to see. And above all else, stay fearless, my friends. For Goddess Rhonda, Goddess Starr, and Tamu and Gina, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, and we'll see you next time.